And that is the real problem, colleagues. Why there is such a problem in this crisis? Because member states are reluctant to transfer new sovereignty and powers to the European Union. And we all know that the only way out of this crisis is a new transfer of powers to the European Union and to the European institutions.
More than 50 million people are displaced around the world.
You have the charisma of a damp rag and the appearance of a low-grade bank clerk. And the question that I want to ask, that we're all going to ask is, who are you? I'd never heard of you. Nobody in Europe had ever heard of you. I would like to ask you, President, who voted for you? And what mechanism? Oh, I know democracy is not popular with you lot. And what mechanism do the peoples of Europe have to remove you? Is this European democracy? Well, I sense, though, that you're competent and capable and dangerous. And I have no doubt that it's your intention to be the quiet assassin of European democracy and of the European nation states. You appear to have a loathing for the very concept of the existence of nation states. Perhaps that's because you come from Belgium, which of course is pretty much a non-country. But since you took over, we've seen Greece reduced to nothing more than a protectorate. Sir, you have no legitimacy in this job at all, and I can say with confidence that I can speak on behalf of the majority of the British people in saying we don't know you, we don't want you, and the sooner you're put out to grass, the better.
The most optimistic scenario is something called Your Africa, which would see mass migration create a welcoming multicultural Europe, because it's working out great so far, isn't it? Acid attacks, gang warfare on the streets, stabbings, machete attacks, terrorist attacks, Sharia law, female genital mutilation. It's so diverse, it's so multicultural, it's enriched us greatly, which would fully embrace being a mixed race land of immigration and interbreeding.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
We're live in the fourth hour of the Alex Jones Show. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, basically the left has now floated this whole notion, and this goes to the heart of how invasively vicious and personal they get with everything, because they can't fight us on the battlefield of ideas, so they have to intervene and muddle with people's private lives. There was a Vice.com article basically saying that conservatives can't get dates. They're trying to terrify young people into not becoming conservatives by suggesting that doing so will leave them lonely and desperate for life. Very, very underhanded tactic. We're going to talk to Ashton Whitty about that at the bottom of the hour. But for now, let's get into this. Breitbart headline, Macron, Europe entering age of unprecedented mass migration, shares destiny with Africa. Now, in this article, the quotes by the French President Macron, he cites this French-American journalist and professor, Stephen Smith, who admitted that 150 to 200 million Africans will be allowed to be transferred into Europe over the next 30 years with the aid of Western money financing. So they're openly admitting the Soros groups, the globalist groups are going to do this. It's not going to be even passed off as some kind of natural migration. It's going to be directly funded from the top. We currently have around 9 million Africans in Europe. They're talking about 200 million. You import 200 million Africans into European countries, what do you get? Africa and all the attendant problems that Africa has. I mean, let's just be honest about it. Can we have an honest debate about this? If you actually want to import Africa, then defend it on its merits, okay? Be upfront about it. Stop lying about it. Macron's being alarmingly honest here. They're talking about 200 million. Listen, Sweden, within our lifetime, Swedes, ethnic Swedes will be a minority in their own country within our lifetimes. I'm not talking about the major cities. I'm talking about the entire country of Sweden. Swedes will be an ethnic minority, okay? At that point, or way before that point, Sweden is no longer Sweden. It becomes something else called Swedistan, mainly. You can't import vast hundreds of millions of people from other countries and not have it change the fundamental nature of a country, for better or worse, okay? So let's debate that on its merits. Let's have an honest debate. They admit it's going to be through Western aid money financing. So they admit it's going to be from the top. And they say that this scenario would see the end of welfare states in Europe because we could not afford it. Already 85% plus of immigrants, of migrants in these countries, Germany, Sweden, they're on welfare. They're not working, which is why it was always so ridiculous when I ever heard Angela Merkel say that Europe needed to import migrants because white people were dying off. They're not having kids. That's true. And that's completely their fault, by the way. They need to take ownership of that. But then she always used to say, well, that's why we need to import tens of millions of migrants, you know, to fund the pension system, to fund the welfare system by working and paying taxes. They don't work. Look at the figures. 85% plus on welfare. There was a stat today out of the Netherlands. 90% of newly arrived migrants after 2.5 years have not had a job, okay? They're not working, they're not paying taxes. The majority of